Hey guys, we're still working through these different steps on getting this Jeep put back together. Our next step is installing our MasterCraft seats. We actually have seat brackets that will adapt to the factory seats, but we need to take these off and get the new ones on and then be able to put the seats together and put them in the Jeep. So we've removed the OEM seats from the original brackets and we've installed most of the conversion kit from MasterCraft. I'm basically just following his YouTube video on how to do this. It's pretty self-explanatory. Their instructions are a little bit vague and hard to see in terms of the pictures, so I just followed the videos a little bit easier. So now we're going to take the existing seat brackets from OEM and we're going to get these seats put together and ready to go back in the Jeep once the bed liner is done, which will be in the next couple of days. Well, the brackets are on both seats and everything's ready to go for going into the Jeep. And I wanted to mention a couple of things that I had issues with. The OEM seat belt bolt has a little bit of a head on it that will prevent it from going all the way. There's no recess in the bracket that comes with your seat kit. So what I ended up doing is using a large lock washer, which will also serve to lock it down. The passenger side went on perfectly fine with that. The driver's side is actually recessed by probably a 1/4 inch here, which means you have to keep this bracket part loose, attach the seatbelt connector to the bolt, and then tighten that up. And it does rub and it will hit right here, but that's just how they go in. There may be something that you can do to bend these or whatever, but for now, I'm gonna leave it like that. I think it'll work fine. Safety-wise, it's just fine. The passenger side went in a little bit easier, but these look great. All the factory hardware is here, so we should be good to go. We're super excited to be able to install OptiCoat's new bed liner. It's not even on the market yet, and we get to put it in this Jeep, which is gonna be awesome. Just like any other paint job or stuff that comes out of a gun, preparation is the most time-consuming and important part. You already saw in the last video that I had sanded off this entire bed, which has been done. I also vacuumed it, sort of wiped it down, and now I need to tape everything off because we have this beautiful, very expensive wrap that we don't want to get bed liner on, so that's what I'm going to do now. This morning we're going to be applying the OptiCoat Ultimate Bed Liner. On the tub of this Jeep, as you can see, I've got everything prepped and ready to go, which took a while, but prep is everything when you're applying any kind of coating, whether it be paint, bed liner, whatever. And this is pretty convenient. It actually comes with a gun, and the gun fits perfectly into the container, so easy peasy. As you can see, this is a pre-retail version, and so we're going to be putting this in. I'm very excited to get this in. This will allow us to get the rest of the interior put in. So I've had this heated up a little bit. It's a little bit chilly this morning, but the surface is definitely over 65 as recommended. So we'll get this pushed out, I'll get suited up, and we'll get this sprayed. We're going to do probably 2 or 3 coats, maybe 4. The first coat is just a tack coat like you typically would do in any paint application. I'll probably keep the video camera back a little bit to protect it from overspray. I'll be fully suited up, goggles, paint suit, all that stuff, so there won't be a lot of narrative. But take a look and let's see how it goes. All right, so that's the first coat, and it should probably be ready to spray the second coat here in just a couple of minutes. This stuff is freaking awesome. It sprays great. It's also water soluble, so it'll be easy to clean up. No acetone and all that stuff like you have to do with normal paint. And it went on really, really smooth. It goes on sort of a light gray, or a dark gray actually, and dries to a black, which is exactly what we want. And so I'm gonna keep going. It's looking really good. I'm pretty excited about this, how it transforms the interior of this Jeep. So you'll notice I removed my goggles again. No matter what I try, I can't get these things to quit fogging. It's super sweaty in here. I'm dying of heat. Even though it's only like 65 degrees today, I can't imagine being in some of the places you guys are. But I can see a lot better, and I sort of just have to take the risk unless I want to buy a full hood suit, which I can't really justify the cost because I don't do enough painting. So there you go. Okay, so that stuff was pretty freaking awesome. So I got done with it. I actually went through 4 of those quarts. I did some pretty thick layers on this. On an interior, I want pretty thick because you're gonna be rubbing stuff on it. You got shoes on it. You got, these girls are gonna have boxes in and out on it. And so I wanted to make sure that I got enough on there. It goes on super easily, sprays right on. One of the quarts had a little bit more viscosity, so I just opened up the valve and was able to get back to the original flow that I was looking for. Cleanup was unbelievably easy. Went over to my hose spigot there and just put some high pressure water through it. Took about 45 seconds and I'm completely done. Not like doing a spray gun, which takes 15 minutes sometimes to get that done if you don't have an automatic cleaner. So Optimum OptiCoat Ultimate Bed Liner is freaking awesome, and I'm not sure when it's going to be available. Probably after this video goes out at some point, maybe SEMA, we're not sure, but this stuff is great. Look for it and you will thank me later. So one of the ways we're going to freshen up this interior is by doing some LVP by Colorbond. These are not a sponsor of ours. We actually paid for these. I assume that stands for leather, vinyl, and plastic. Everything's already black, but we want to shine it up a little bit. We want to freshen it up a little bit. There's a little bit of wear and tear on it after 120,000 miles. My buddy Marty Hopes from Marza Bozeman, one of our sponsors, who's an awesome guy, said he never uses the primer and sanding and all that stuff. He just shoots it on, does a light tack coat, and then a couple of other coats, and we're good to go. So we're going to give that a shot. We're using a little bit of carpet refinisher from Colorbond also on the seat belts to brighten them up as well. So we're going to do these separately. We'll pull everything out that we can, and then we've got a bunch of stuff inside that we'll do after we shoot bed liner and get all that masked off. As you can see, this stuff does a great job. All I need to do now is tape off the interior and do the rest of the dash that we could not remove, and everything will be looking nice and black.
As we all know, looking good on the outside only gets you so far. True beauty starts on the inside, and the same goes with Sugar High. So today we're going to be working on her engine. We're going to be replacing most of the cooling system, putting in a new alternator, new fuel injectors, and adding in some new spark plugs. So let's get to work.
All right, when you're working on engines and you have a bunch of stuff to do, you want to try to maximize your efficiency. And so we know we're going to be pulling this radiator out, so we need to get the coolant out of it. So what we're going to do while we work on some other stuff, we'll pull the drain plug and get it started in terms of draining, and then it'll be ready when we're ready for it.
time to work on the cooling system. So the first step is removing the radiator.
So it's 6:40 in the morning, and I wanted to show you something that absolutely just kicked my ass last night. This has been on for 120,000 miles, just like everything else, and it was a bear to get off. So trying to get the water pump off, trying to take everything apart and all that, it's just a real pain. So wanted to show you a solution that I came up with. Actually, I've seen it before, I just had forgotten about it. I was tired last night, had been working all day, and so I came out this morning sort of fresh in mind and got everything set up. Basically what I've done is I took and I put a long bolt into the water pump pulley where the four go in, and then I put a piece of chain through that long bolt, actually the other way around, but put a piece of chain in there, put a piece of chain in the the thermostat housing, chain that up, and then I was able to turn that clockwise and eventually break it through with this huge crescent wrench. So we got that going. So now we'll be able to get that off, get the rest of the water pump installed, put a new thermostat housing in, and move on. But man, that was a real pain. It took me hours to try to figure that out. And so that's a simple solution. I hope that helps you save some time. While Michelle takes care of a few things inside, I'm prepping to finish up our cooling system, and then I also went ahead and installed our cold air intake. A couple different things that this thing will do for us. First of all, it makes it possible to run these Highline fenders. The original airbox simply won't fit, and it will also give us more airflow, which should theoretically give us better power and torque especially. And usually those horsepower gains and torque gains are a little bit negligible, but we needed this system anyway, so it's sort of a double bonus. It actually includes a 1-inch spacer on the throttle body so that everything fits, which should give us more velocity in the air that's coming into the engine, and it allows us to get some cooler air in. We have elected, because of space and because of the way this engine is designed, to not put in the big heat shield. Most of the heat on this V6 or the straight 6 actually comes from the other side of the engine, so we're just going to try this, see how it goes, and not put in that big heat shield. It's sort of hard to fit in this particular application just because of everything we have. So that's the cold air intake. We will get started on the cooling system again here in a bit.
After realizing our mistake yesterday, we went back to the auto parts store and got ourselves a new alternator, a correct one this time. This is actually from a 2002 Dodge Durango from a 4.7 V8 engine. And it's a direct bolt-in. The only thing different is it does have one extra bracket that we don't need to use, but it's okay. It still fits in there just fine. And we're going to put this in and give us some more power.
Right over those. Typically I would put RTV on both sides of this gasket, but these are the Felpro gaskets that actually have adhesive on them already. So we'll apply that there, and then I'll go ahead and put RTV on this other side, which is the part that mates to the engine block. Just like when we did the baggies, I always like to keep track of what I'm doing so that I know how to put things back, especially for stuff like water pumps and timing chain covers and that kind of thing. They typically will have various size bolts depending on where they're going in. And so what I ended up doing is actually, as we took these bolts out, I put a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on them so I could match it up to make sure I know which bolt goes in which hole. It's easier that way, and just simplifies the installation.
I see. I had this line right.
When you do these sensors, you want to avoid using Teflon tape like we typically would in household plumbing, because what these sensors typically do is they ground out on the actual water pump or intake manifold, whatever they happen to be. So you actually need metal to metal contact in order to get that to work. So one of the options is you can use Sensor Safe Ultra Copper Permatex, which is basically a copper inlaid sealant, just like RTV. It's a type of RTV. It's high temp, it's sensor safe, and so you can use it sparingly. It'll add a good seal, but it'll also keep the sensor working. So yeah, they still need to be retorqued.
We're gonna go ahead and put the lower radiator hose on now because it's easier to get to without the fan in place.
So we have that. A new bottle.
Now that we've got the new radiator in, we're gonna fill it with coolant and burp the system, just like a baby. Since we've got the new one in there, it's full of air, we've got air going all through the system, so we wanna get all that air out.
Yeah, we'll probably put 2 or 3 gallons in it. So I am stuck here with the dogs working on the Jeep. We've got a couple of days left to try to get this thing on the road. And so I've got a bunch of stuff to knock down, knock out. First thing I'm gonna do is work on these headlights, which are by Razor Auto. These things are freaking awesome. They come with all the harnesses you need, they come with all the wiring you need, and they really make a great look. They're all LED based, and can't wait to get these things installed. So they just use some of the hardware. They fit perfectly with their grill. This is their Angry Birds grill. And I think they'll look really good. One of the nice things is that they have both JK and TJ connectors, so you can get everything connected very easily. They use the OEM stock locations and plug right in. Things are awesome. Now we'll put the grill back on, be ready to go. We're making the switch over to LEDs. They look cooler, they're smaller, they're less visual impact in terms of how they look on the vehicle. Our TNT fenders actually had a pre-drilled hole, and so we're using a little dual LED lens here for our turn signals. One of the issues with LEDs is that they don't have enough resistance in order to complete the circuit when it comes to the turn signals and the hazards. And so there's different ways about that you can go about messing with that. Correcting that, and I'm actually going to take an easy way, which is basically tap into the existing wiring and use the old main bulb in order to create that circuit and create that resistance. We're on a bit of a time crunch. I may rewire this at a later time, but that's how I'm going to wire it for now. I just tested it, hooked up my leads, and it worked exactly the way I wanted it to. My marker lights are built in automatically into my Razor headlights, so that's easy. All I have to do is hook into that as well, and we'll be good to go. Today's all about wiring and suspension. It's a couple days before we're trying to get this thing done, and right now I'm currently chasing a little bit of wiring issues. Managed to get the brake lights all done, which was a bit of a challenge. Got those all done. Headlights are in, turn signals are working up front. However, I have a marker light, which is part of this integrated LED system by Razor Auto that's not working. So I don't know if it's a wiring issue, it's a headlight issue. I'm tying into the headlamps, and one of the headlamps is out, or one of the turn signals is out, which is also the marker light. And so I'm waiting for a new bulb. Michelle's out picking up our bead locks, which have just been repainted by Mars Bozeman, and they are freaking awesome. It's amazing. Chris Hopes managed to get the color exactly right. So we'll get those put back on, work on the suspension. I'm going to do some wiring stuff while Michelle's gone, and then we'll get started. So it's time to get the Warn winch controller all wired up. Everything is labeled, easy to do it. I've put 2 posts on the side of our Optima battery, which is nice because then you can use your external wiring for that instead of worrying about the posts that are on top of the battery. So that's good. So let's see if we can get it to work. Nice.